about Battle Angel Alita Volume 1 by Yukito Koshiro. So I read it here on my e-reader, and I got these about 2 years ago off of Humble Bundle, but I would have wanted to read it when I was much younger. When I was about 13 years old, I saw the short animated film on the Action Channel, and I would have really have wanted to read the Battle Angel series back then. And that would have been despite the fact that I'd never been into manga. As you can see from a previous video, I really liked Archie comics growing up, and I guess I'm still quite fond of it now. Besides that, I've always just read American comics. I read like Spider-Man and Batman and Wolverine, and I have a lot of those comics back home. The only comic books I have on me here are only digital comics, maybe on here or on my computer or something like that. So in the original animated movie, and then in the more recent live-action movie, they take parts from different volumes throughout the issues of Battle Angel Alita. It's not going in chronological order following the series. So in this first volume, the plot is much simpler. It's just Ito, a robot doctor. He finds Alita in the scrapyard. She doesn't even have a name. He's just seeing if he can find anything useful there at all. And then he finds this head, this bust, and it's still alive. Unconscious, but still alive. He brings her back to his home. He repairs her, gives her a new robot body. And so Ito, he's a hunter. He hunts bounties. The factory works for Zalem, which is this big floating city, and the factory also puts out bounties for the worst criminals. Now, as far as I can remember in the story, that is the only law enforcement, is to have bounties be on the worst criminals, and hunters find these bounties, cut off their heads, and then present their heads to the factory, and then get paid for it. The importance and significance that you see later on in the story, which is not really mentioned as much in the first volume, is that when you remove the head, you remove the brain. So the brain is the most essential thing about what a person is, more than, well, anything. It's the brain. So even the main villain in this first volume, Mukaku, the main part of his own body when he gets destroyed is his head, attached to a snake-like spine, snake-like back, and he can use it to kind of escape. And what he wants is to eat brains. So that's about it for me to give this summary before I show this on the graphic novel that I'll show you in a second. And before I start to show you the graphic novel, I want to ask now, and maybe I'll ask again in a few minutes. Tell me if I needed to show more pages or less pages, because as I begin to show you it, I want to show you the highlights of the story. And I might be skipping a few plot points, and I will be skipping showing a lot of the pages of action, of fighting, because I'm just going to focus on the story. So let me know if I should have shown more or less pages or something like that about it as well. So without further ado, I'm going to show you the graphic novel. So now I'm showing you the cover page of the graphic novel itself. The original cyberpunk classic Battle Angel Alita, Volume 1 by Yukito Koshiro. So here is the cover for the first issue, Fight 1 Rusty Angel. So what we can already begin to see is that there's not a lot of color on this first page. And of course, this is a manga, so most of it, there's no color. But I do still really like this cover, nonetheless. Okay, now we are on the first page, and Ito finds Alita in the scrapyard. And, it's a miracle. She's alive. So a little bit later, Ito is showing Alita around, and, she doesn't know anything. She doesn't know what's going on. So we don't know how old she is. We don't know how long she's been in the scrapyard or anything like that. We can see that she's on his back, and no arms, no legs. So a few days later, Alita now has a body. She's in bed, and Ito is going to go out hunting. And Alita's kind of curious about this. So as we can see on the next page, even as it says here, he's going to ambush that woman. So Alita feels a little bit like maybe Ito is destroying innocent female robots to take their parts, and maybe he's been giving those to her a little bit. But in reality, someone else has been hurting innocent robots, and he's a hunter. So a little bit later, Alita sees that Ito's innocent, and then she jumps out at him. She jumps out at the villain. And I like this part here. Ito thinks that move was Panzerkunst, a Martian martial arts. So this is where we're first introduced to this martial arts style. And this is going to be significant because I don't know if this martial arts style is based on anything real, but it's pretty cool that the author thinks of these different fighting moves, styles, tactics, all these things, and it becomes kind of a recurring thing. Okay, now let's look here. Issue 2, Fighting Instincts. So Alita wants to become a hunter. She goes to the factory and she's startled by all these robots jumping up, asking her if she needs any help, and she decides to become a hunter. So I like this part right here. So we're supposed to look at Ito as a pretty good guy, and he really is. But he's having this internal dialogue. He's thinking to himself, and we can read this one. I'm a self-centered man who kills for pleasure. So as Ito, the doctor, he's very kind, and he's great to all of his patients. But on his free time at night, he's killing not so much to try to keep people safe and have there be some law and order, but he kind of enjoys it. Okay, this issue 3, Fight 3, what has value? So there is a bit of color on this issue. This is the beginning of the issue, but at the end of the last issue, most of Alita's body had been destroyed other than her left arm, as you can see, and she lands on the ground with her left arm. And then I skipped over a few more pages, and she was still fighting Mukaku. She was still fighting Mukaku with just her left arm. And as you can see, Mukaku was holding her in his left hand, and then Ito comes, he attacks him, destroys his other arm, and now he's kind of screaming in pain. Then we see Mukaku runs away. Now, another thing I want to point out besides the plot point of him running away is I don't quite like this part here. The spirit is but a plaything of the body. Now, we can see on the bottom, it's Friedrich Nietzsche who said this, but what I don't like about it is that I think it's kind of talking down to your audience. Now, I told a friend about this, and the friend said, well, I kind of like that because sometimes I don't know who it's from or something like that. And he said, what's the age range that this is targeting? Well, I almost feel like this comic is targeting, I don't know, maybe 17-year-old boys or maybe not even 17, maybe, I don't know, it's kind of targeting teenagers. It's targeting teenagers. So maybe not everybody knows who that is, but in the previous page, Mukaku says who he's quoting. So I think this is talking down a little bit. Okay, now let's go here to Fight 4, Issue 4, Resurgence. So here, Ito and his assistant are going to Ito's basement. Alita is unconscious, so she's being pushed in her chair. And then here, when did your clinic have a basement? So this kind of matters because because he's a doctor, so he treats all these patients, but then he does keep a few things to himself, and one important thing he keeps himself is this: the berserker body. So he has this berserker body, which is a robot body, which is essentially a weapon. and now Ito feels that he should give this berserker body to Alita, and this is for a few reasons. She wants to be a hunter. He can see that she can fight, and Makaku wants to finish what he started with Alita and Ito. I like this sequence here. You know, we saw this a little bit. I think at the end of the last chapter, where we can see into Alita's consciousness a little bit, but as a baby. But now we see into her consciousness, and she's sort of floating through the sky, and she's floating back, or not even floating, flying back into consciousness. Okay, now this next section, we see this man talking to this gladiator. So this gladiator is this huge guy. Then we see this small little robot, and he seems to have snuck into this place where the gladiators can sort of rest after a fight, and so this fan goes to the gladiator, and the gladiator decides to like share a drink with him. Well, it turns out that the fan is no one other than Makaku, and so he decides to take this opportunity to surprise the gladiator and to steal his body, because Makaku and the gladiator's abilities, I think, kind of go hand in hand. You see, Makaku, he can sort of move around easily, and the way he moves around with the sort of retractable neck is the similar way that the gladiator, the way his fingers come out. His fingers have these actuators, and they can sort of retract and go out at will, and they're very strong, they're very sharp, and so Makaku wants that ability. Okay, now let's go forward a little bit, and I think that this scene really shows Alita's immaturity. And if I can recall, people had mentioned that a little bit about the more recent film, but it comes straight from here. It comes straight from the first volume of the graphic novel. Ito decides to take Alita to the Kansas bar. So they go to the Kansas bar, and Ito tries to appeal to their sense of morality, that they must help them and they must defeat Makaku. Well, they decline. They refuse. They're in it to be bounty hunters. It's a job, and they're not going to try to get involved in something like that. So this bothers Alita. So she basically just starts to fight with them, which she has this new sense of confidence because she has this new berserker body. But there was not a reason for her to fight them. And also take note of the baby right here. I'll bring this back up in a second. Okay, let's go on to the next page. Fight 5, issue 5, Trap at the Mouth of Hell. Okay, so Makaku goes in, everyone's all scared, and so he goes and he attacks Alita. She's not scared at all. They go back and forth a little bit, and then Makaku says, you know what, we're going to fight under my terms. He destroys the ground, he kidnaps the baby, and he says, Alita, follow me underground, follow me underground. And, she does so, and some people can think it's foolish because he's still very dangerous. She's now going into his terrain, and, she follows him. Okay, I'm skipping ahead a little bit to a little bit later, and then we see a dog goes to help Alita, rescue the baby, and so it takes a sort of stick out of his eye, and he screams in pain, and that she takes that opportunity to rescue the baby, give it to the dog, and then to tell the dog to take the baby back up to Kansas bar. Okay, now this next one, Fight 6, issue 6, Battle Angel. So I only took this one screenshot from here. I want to just highlight on the plot point. I don't want to show everything. There's quite a bit of fighting in this 5th and 6th volume, but this is definitely one thing of note here. You fool! did you not even notice that losing an arm would have an effect on your weight balance? So I like this here because Alita had just torn off one of Mukaku's arms. So by tearing it off, Mukaku is still very new to this body, and he's so desperate to beat her that he lunges forward with the other arm, shooting all the actuator fingers at her, and that she turns around, she spins around him, tears off his arm, and you know, maybe he didn't make the best choice by trying to attack her like that. Okay, well, I'm going to finish the video here. I hope you've enjoyed. Please let me know if maybe I should have shown a few more plot points, a few more pictures or something like that to try to tell you what's cool or not cool about this story, and just tell me if you like it or not or something like that. Okay, see you later. Bye.